Welcome, everybody, to our workshop today. We got with us Ryan McCarty and Miss Shannon Rose Farrell Jackson with us today, and we're going to be discussing 3 ways to champion your culture, really starting now. And so, before we get started in this conversation, for those who are new and may not have attended other workshops here in the past, we do these once a month. And with these 3 fabulous faces you'll see as we talk about all things culture. And so I'm excited about today. But before we get any further, we want to introduce, let's go with Miss Shannon. Just tell us just a short brief about yourself, and then we'll kick it over to Ryan as well.
All right. Well, I'm Shannon Rose. Shannon Rose Farrell Jackson is a big, long name, but you can just call me Shannon Rose. I am a love-based culture coach. I also do empowerment coaching, self-defense coaching, but my main thing is going into places that need love, creating space for love to come in and do its great work. And yes, that even means in corporate America. So that's what I do. I'm a mom of 2. I just got a new puppy, a blue tick coonhound, and he does have this incredible bay. And my life is full and chaotic, just the way I like it.
How did that sound one more time?
Oh. There you go. All right. Last time you get me, George.
Ryan, what's up, man? What's going on with you?
Oh, what have I been up to lately? All things culture, people. Lately this idea of being a champion and how we do that has been so close to my heart. And I don't know, it just even using that idea has been exciting for me lately in people's lives. And on a personal note, I've gotten back into writing some hip hop, MC raps. I've got painting, art. I think art has really saved my soul over the last, through the pandemic. And now it's really given me an opportunity to reconnect and just feel awesome. So anything art, man, I've been into it, and recently started getting into buying and reselling old pop culture jackets, clothing, toys from like the 80s and 90s. So like trying to do things that I just really enjoy and have fun doing and crafting that into my life. And so I, just walk down to the bar and sell shit at the bar sometimes. And then sometimes I'm, consulting with 30,000 employee company potentially, and there's all kinds of different things happening. But so just been into all of that. What about you?
Man, I've been trying to do some good down here in Nashville, and I got a 7-year-old kid that is, learning how to play football, and that's kind of been the world. I'm very competitive. In life, many things, as we know, everything changes. A lot of things change in the workplace, in your family. Some things that just never change. One of those things for me is my competitive spirit. I just can't get rid of it. And so I've been, for 4 weeks of this flag football league, I've been sitting on the bench being a proud dad and cheering my kid on and,
That's cool.
just, loving them through everything. And somehow last week I became Coach George because I couldn't take it anymore. It's like they're missing the practical points. So I've jumped on the football field and became a coach. And 7-year-olds, they're fun, man. And I too have a dog that is very entertaining. I want to show this picture if I can because I think it's hilarious and I want to jumpstart. I don't know if people, Shane, I don't know if you've ever had this situation yet, but this is 5 days. She's about to be 1 year old. And yesterday, while she was at work, she found the blue marker. She found her brother's blueberry scented marker. And,
oh my God!
She painted her face, and so that's what I dealt with, man.
Yeah, Sammy Blue is a fan of colored pencils. We'll just say that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's get started because I know we got a lot to kind of dig in, and I want to throw a lot of questions your way as we discuss how companies and individuals can really champion their culture and really instead of starting in the middle, let's kind of really kick it off from the very beginning. When we talk about how there's impact, there's really multiple ways that people's culture and company culture can really impact places. And one of those is the impact that it makes in the world, right, in their community, and how the culture can impact there. Ryan, when we talk about really engaging your employees and getting people in the workplace to have that energy and that focus and really match that engagement towards a positive impact in the world, what does that look like, and what does that mean? When we go to the foundational phase of starting culture now and building upon that.
Yeah, I think we start from a place of identifying what is our main cultural identity as an organization. Like what is the one thing that defines our culture? Now, many things define culture, right? Make up the culture. But if we were to ask multiple different employees, tell me, like, what is it about your culture that's meaningful, that's purposeful, or, define your culture for me? Would we get multiple different answers? So I think first, as leaders, we have to really discover what our culture is. Like we can't assume our culture is one thing and it's completely different, because then that creates distrust within the organization, and there's a lack of unity. There's not a unified message or a mission or vision that we're all getting behind. But once we're able to define what our culture is, so my first thought is that we have to define what culture is, because we have to answer that, because we don't know what we're asking people to engage with. We have all these engagement programs and we send out surveys and we assume we're going to build employee engagement by sending out a satisfaction survey, getting some answers back, and dealing with the problems that the employees say that they're having on why they're not satisfied. That's a very defensive approach to building culture. An offensive approach is really being able to say, okay, what is our culture, and how do we amplify the good that's already there? How do we build on what makes us already special, instead of assuming that we have to be something else than what we truly are? So who are you? And does that need to change? What is your culture? Not what do you want your culture to be? What is your culture right now? And once you're able to know what that identity is, I think you can start to say, okay, this is what we're asking people to engage with. When we say engage with me, when I got engaged to Katara the first time, I wasn't like, engage with me. And then she said, but she didn't know who I was. And also it's problematic if I don't know who I am and I'm asking Qatar to get engaged with me, right? So it's really, really important for leaders and teams to first know their culture. What is your cultural identity? And then what are you asking people to engage with?
Yeah, that's good. That's good, Shannon. Let's talk about that, because a lot of people have different definitions of what culture is, and really how we define culture and versus another company may look different, it may sound different. And so when we talk about culture, Shannon, how would you define it to be able to lay out a initial plan or a foundation? Say, hey, this is truly what culture is, to make sure they understand and on the same page.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you can hear my dog in the background. Well, that's good.
Your dog's answering the question already.
Yes. He has something to say. Okay. So culture to me is how an environment looks and feels, right? How does it behave? How does it feel? To me, it's as simple as that. So if you walk into a culture, you're a part of a culture, how are people behaving around you? What does it look and how do you feel within that culture? So that to me is just the simplest definition of all. This could be the culture of your home. It could be the culture of your corporation. It could be the culture that you want to create within a team. All of those things. But when I think of culture, it is also almost like another living, breathing entity that needs to be fostered, that needs to have, like you said, its own identity, that needs its own energy, that also gives its own energy and benefits. So if you think of something like culture and you want culture to be empowered to grow, you need to treat it like such. And when you empower people, you meet them where they're at and you help them take their first steps forward to where you want to go. So if you think of culture, just in all honesty with yourself and with your company, just define it. If you have a culture that is just not where you want it, define it as is. Identify those gaps, identify those raw things that you're just like, man, it really sucks when people come into my team and they just feel beaten down right away, right?
Yeah.
Own it. Identify it and own it, because if you don't own that not right away, you can't empower that culture to take that first step. So own that and say, okay, let's meet our culture where it's at. People feel beaten down when they get onto our team. They feel overwhelmed. They don't feel welcomed. Okay, that's how it is. Now, what's one step further from that? Right? What's one step outside of that? What's one step towards healing that? And so for me, I think of the process of empowerment, meeting them where they're at, taking one step out, and then meshed with emotional intelligence of self-awareness and accepting the fact that this is where we're at, right?
Yeah.
So, and then from there, you can take those first steps, and not just you as a leader saying, this is what we're going to do, but empower the people around you, create those vacuums for them to step in and be a part of that, to own their own part and self-awareness in fostering that culture. Because it's true, we all enable the culture, right? Of disengagement or of whatever.
Trust or whatever it is. Yeah.
Trust. As employees, we also own part of that too. And so it is important that we all own our part, we all level set, we're all aware of it, and then we are able to create that small vacuum for us all to take one step forward. So that's how I think of defining culture and then empowering a culture right away.
Yeah.
When I posted this, and on my social media, one of the questions that somebody messaged me specifically, I want to throw it out right now, because I think as we talk about company culture and you talk about empowerment and engaging, the question was, George, how do we gain trust from a company that has bad culture, but always presents new things, but never follows through with it, right?
I have a quick answer for that.
Yes.
You
Please.
can't. Yeah. Have a leadership change.
Yeah.
Because if you're just, I think a lot of those questions come from the same thing that you are suggesting, from the same people. I get this all the time. It's like, well, I want to do all this work, but our company organization wide does not support this type of effort. You've got a beating heart behind you, George. I guarantee you my CFO does not give two craps about your beating heart behind you. It's all ROI, you know what I mean? So it's all based on like that kind of criterion reality that so many people are facing. And so the question is, how do you do that in a company that's constantly with a new flavor of the month and there's already distrust within the ranks? Where do you start with that? Yeah. Well, it's gonna take some time. It really, part of what we do within the culture of good process is organizational change management. It goes back to what Shannon was saying, that if you're going to engage people, you have to first empower them. And as she said, I mean, there is a pathway forward. The question's always going to be, is a leadership willing to be vulnerable enough to be able to say, yeah, this is the reality of what we have right now in the company. We're not trying to trying to cover that over. Part of leadership is admitting to failure, is admitting to say, we failed in this area, you know. So either there has to be a leadership change, or there has to be a change in leadership. There has to in themselves, in the leaders, right? So they have, we have to. I mean, it's a must. That's like saying, how do I build trust with my wife when I just don't come home every weekend? Like, just start coming home every weekend. And that, so we have to have organizational change management ideas, which Shannon is great at this, but throughout our process, we teach and embed that. But part of that is how do we implement change within an organization without it being so disruptive, but it actually being something that benefits and empowers and heals and brings life to people that are there working for you. But it has to start in the leadership first. It has to start with honest reflection, open dialogue, and a willingness to say, we don't fully know how this is going to work, but we're as your leadership team, and we're going to need to work together to build a culture of trust in this organization. We recognize it's not here now.
One of the things about that, you said, when organizations keep throwing out new solutions, bringing in a new consulting firm to deploy, some big cultural rollout. And then the next year it's something different. And they do a 2-day presentation and they get the leaders all hyped up. And then they have an intranet created with resources and then they leave. And then that's it, right? Well, that's not organizational change management. You've brought awareness, but you've created desire, but you have in no way helped them build the knowledge, the capabilities, the skills, or the sustainment tactics to keep that going. And so when I come into an organization who's like, oh, great, another person who's coming in to do culture. Oh, great, another program. Don't worry, you'll be gone in a year, And one thing that I am consistently tenacious. I just keep showing up over and over, whether one person is engaged or 300 people are engaged. I hold the same space for everyone over and over and over and over again. And what they realize is, wow, this isn't going to go away. Mm-hmm. And I also encourage organizations to pick one thing. If they're bad and they're failing at everything, like culture, pick one thing. What is that? Is that trust? Is that fun? Is that enjoyment? Just pick one thing and let's work on that for 6 months. Because when you try to tackle everything, you end up failing at all those things.
Yeah. So when companies are coming together and we're talking about, defining what culture is, we're talking about how it can impact our world. How do we discover that one centralized thought, right? What's the foundation between discovering that centralized thought towards culture and what that looks like so you can gain that momentum?
Well, I mean, one of the cool things that Culture of Good does is coming in and workshopping that and getting the right people engaged in the right conversation right away. When you can provide access to your organization, because that's a lot of times what happens. They're like, yes, we're totally on board. We come in and then they're like, oh, but this person is really busy. They've got projects going on for the next 3 months. So you can't have access to them. And then this team, I'm sorry, they're dealing with you as an organization need to prioritize this culture work and say, we're going to dedicate and devote and put on calendars consistent time, overtime, to dedicate to this work. You may not think it's important now, but that is how change happens. Providing consistent space over a long period of time, that is how it happens. So for me, I work on getting access to the right people right away, getting them in the same room. We do that initial focus session and workshop. And yes, it can maybe be over 2 or 3 sessions, but they're in the matter of, a couple weeks. And then by the end of that couple weeks, we have something we're going to focus on, and then immediate action. What are those quick wins, and how do we ground this, boots on the ground, and get this going? And the cool thing is when you have tools that you can just pull from, it's easier. If you're trying to recreate everything every single time, it's not great. So with Culture of Good, we've got cool tools, that we can just pull in, ground it, and move it forward. We have buy-in tactics. We've got organizational change management grounding, those types of things that are really neat to do. So anyways, for me, that's how I do it. Is you got to prioritize this. You say you're prioritizing it. Now show it to me in your actions and behaviors.
Yeah.
Let's get time. Let's workshop this, and let's move it through to quick action. And usually, to me, I find that the reaction right away is a little defensive, but after we're done with that quick process, it's refreshing. People feel lighter, they feel energized about it, and they feel energized for a longer period of time. So.
Awesome. Ryan, when we're engaging our employees with work that has a positive impact on the world, what does that look like if a company says, "Hey, I want to have this. I want real solutions that will get them there." How do you respond to that? I know in Culture Good, with these workshops, and as you're working with the company's champion that's really producing that, and they're at that stage where they have the buy-in, they understand and define what culture truly is and what it means and where they want it to go within their workplace. Engaging your employees with that positive impact on the world. How do you get to build those things? Where does it go, and how do they decide on those factors?
Yeah, I think every company and organization does it different. Every culture solution's a little bit different. Those that are on here that are watching, obviously Culture of Good's not the only solution for culture out there. We've just been doing it for 10 years now, and I've been in the culture space about 30 years, close to 30 years. So before it was really a trendy thing to be a part of, and I think one thing that we've learned throughout that process and building the Culture of Good is there are key elements that we found that, at least in our perspective, because Culture of Good's unique in that it's not a culture program that just focuses on the internal. It really has a focus on the external, like what you're talking about, like that engagement and positive impact on the world. It's really driven by good. That's why we call it Culture of Good. Somebody the other day, George, was like, "How come you didn't call it Culture of Great? Isn't great better than good?" I said, "But yeah, the greatest companies do the most good." So, within the Culture of Good, the idea of how to do this and how do you get that central thing is really taking all that you're doing already, because most companies have some form of outreach, give back, checks given to charities, whatever that is. If you look at the entire ecosystem of how your business, in terms of philanthropy and volunteerism, social responsibility, is giving back already, many times it's not that companies, organizations aren't giving back, aren't doing good, aren't impacting the world. It's they could use a structure to implement. They could use a framework of sorts to be able to make sure that all of those efforts are streamlined in a way that what we found is it's really helpful that all of those efforts are aligned with the core competency of the organization or the business. So what products and services, what do you do as a business? Connecting all of the elements of how you give back to that and aligning that is really crucial, because it makes more sense why a company that is in the food industry would be a part of going down to, local charities that are giving back to, say, for instance, those that are hungry and those that need lunches throughout the summer, kids, whatever it is, that kitchen, that organization that works maybe in food service then would go and do that. So we're looking for everything that you do collectively streamlined into one central effort that is structured in a way that there's quarterly engagement opportunities. And that to me is like the key. If we're going to engage employees, they need to know what culture they're engaging with And what does it mean to be engaged? What does it mean to be empowered? What does it mean to contribute? What does it mean for me to show up to work every day and feel like my work matters more than just me getting a paycheck every other Friday? Like, people are hungry for that type of understanding. What is my place in this workplace, and how do I use my contribution to make greater good happen? And so organizations that have a culture champion or somebody that's over that champion, we would train that champion. I'm sure a lot of the champions that are watching right now understand that you really have to have a process that people know how to plug into, and that there's space for them to contribute and do so meaningfully. And that's where I would also suggest that we engage based on how we feel about that engagement. And that can be that feeling can come from all kinds of different things. But I know in any relationship, if I'm feeling a disconnect, I'm going to disconnect. And so employees aren't going to, if they're feeling a disconnect, take the initiative to reconnect. That's the role of leadership within an organization. Now, I would encourage employees to do that, but I think it's the leader's responsibility to keep that connection strong. And in order to do so, we have to be able to have shared experiences of creative expression, how we want to make an impact on the world and to do good. Every single person in the organization, if they feel that their contribution is making an impact on the world, even by showing up to work every day and doing their work and striving to be the best and to build a strong team, that is really key to getting that central idea. But we really have to have somebody internally that captures and inspires the culture forward and empowers people through a process.
Yeah, you said the word reconnect, and that really sticks with me because being a person that sometimes can be distant, and those people, once they reconnect, just kind of a highlight, some of those people that reconnect to something like culture good and what culture good can do in the workplace, they become, part of that champion team. They become that person that's getting other people that they know are just like them, that felt like they felt. Because as we talked about earlier, in defining culture of good, culture is really defined by how people feel and behave, right? Most of the time. And so when you have that person who can reconnect, and I want to push this question to you, Shannon. I call it the doctor of love.
Shannon's our doctor of love.
In order to reconnect,
stethoscope.
you got to feel that love. You got to feel like you belong and you want to be there. And so as we're talking, and this is all dealing with engagement, right?
Yes.
How do we get connected, reconnect? If you were encouraging somebody on your team, you just got reconnected, and we want to get this momentum. You're a believer in what's going on. How do we reconnect and really inspire? Because one of the challenges that I see is, and the question that I often wonder is, how often do we ask our team members how the culture of the company and what it means to them? And so, Shannon, how do you connect those things, reconnect, and then make them feel like this culture thing is you as much as it is us?
Yeah. Well, again, all the things that keep coming to me are, it's not just about a one-time reconnection. It's not just about a one question you ask right now and then you're done. So one of the things when I'm going into organizations that I talk about with leaders is, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be regularly listening to your organization. Right? I'm going to put my ear to the ground and I am going to be listening. I'm going to be listening to people talk ad hoc. I'm going to be sitting in on meetings and listening to how people and watching. How do your meetings feel? How do people behave in your meetings? Is everyone really quiet and afraid to step up and say anything? That says a lot. The behaviors, the actions. I'm in there listening. I'm having one-on-one conversations. I'm sitting in on some one-on-ones. How do people feel when they're trying to give feedback to their managers or they're getting feedback? You can tell a lot by just listening and observing, and getting a feel for, like, what's actually happening. And then making sure, so health is a big deal for me. I work on building muscle. I am in martial arts. So inspiration is great, but inspiration doesn't carry you. It'll get you started, but it's not what keeps you going. It's, again, the tenacity and knowing that you just got to keep showing up. You got to keep showing up when you want to. You got to keep showing up when you don't want to. You got to keep showing up when you're really tired. You got to keep showing up when no one else is showing up. That is what gets things through. And that's what being a champion in an organization looks like. It's not just like, rah, 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 here we go. It's like, okay, we're in the middle of the summer. We got half our team out. We got a lot of work. But guess what? Culture is more important now than ever. And we got to keep prioritizing the things, the behaviors of taking time, space, dedicating time to having good feedback back and forth, being open and honest and authentic, listening to each other, creating those spaces to get to know each other, and holding that consistently. Yes, even when we're worn up, even when we're overworked, even when we quote unquote don't have time. That's when it's actually more important. So that's what I would say is that, inspiring is great, but that's not actually what keeps it going. It's the champion who can keep showing everybody what it looks like to just keep showing up. Show up.
Show up,
That's important. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I was going to say, Jason Hartman, really happy that you're on here. I got to meet Jason last week in Arizona when I spoke at FedCon, and he's been really very interactive with Culture of Good. So appreciate you jumping on, man. And you are a champion, bro. This guy's going back into his work and really living out Culture of Good. And this is the kind of things that we're facing, right? Because Culture of Good is a process. So how do we do this? So Jason, I wanted to mention this. So what are some ways to increase buy-in from employees who may be hourly to be a part of the big good? So don't think it's just a marketing ploy or a waste of time. Tenacity is something that Shannon did mention. I think as a leader, that aspect of tenacity just simply means that we're going to keep showing up, right? Because the listening part as a leader is really important, because the longer you listen, the more you learn about why maybe those employees aren't connecting. I've found that a lot of organizational change takes time. And it takes anywhere up to 36 months for true organizational change to happen. Now, within our process, we started to see engagement within the Culture of Good and the impact of Culture of Good earlier. And one of the ways that we saw it take off more organically, because the Culture of Good's not a silver bullet or like a perfect solution for culture. It gives a framework and it allows us to learn as we go. And one of the things that we learned is how important it was for us to be consistent and to create a steady, consistent, predictable pattern of engagement. So when we talk about our quarterly efforts or folding Culture of Good or culture conversation, vision, values, mission into weekly meetings, talking about Culture of Good efforts that are coming up, all of those things, what we saw organically was essentially peer pressure helped build the Culture of Good. Shannon, you talk a lot about early adoption. And I know within the hourly employees, they're going to see this potentially. And we had those that were working within TCC, where we launched Culture of Good almost 10 years ago, and it was met with skepticism and distrust. There it is. Can you share that? Because I think that's really powerful to those that are on here today. So we've got the innovators, early adopters. We have
early majority.
Yeah, the late majority, and then
laggards.
Laggards. I was trying to figure out what that was. I was like, what in the world? Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to be a laggard.
This is my business, everybody. This is
Yes.
what I do.
Yeah. And
So, yeah.
so Jason, you're going to have people engage at different moments. Certain people engage later because of different reasons. They've worked longer in the company, they've seen things like this come through before, or they were at another business and they had a culture thing that they said was so great and we cared about people and loved people, but at the end of the day they know it was window dressing. And so you're going to have employees that are going to be hesitant in this space. As you as a leader make commitments, that's one of the things that we do in one of the first workshops is we have leaders that are key stakeholders in this within the organization that are working with the champion, but those leaders are making commitments, quite frankly, and saying this is not something that's here today, gone tomorrow. Over time, trust is built, and those hourly employees that may think of it as a waste of time or a marketing ploy, which that certainly there may be some of those elements in there. Those people will either engage themselves because of, or be challenged by their team, because what's beautiful about the culture of good is we're not just engaging each individual, we're engaging their team. So now, and then the organization. So if on an individual basis, they're not fully engaged, we're going to start organizationally, engage the whole organization and not really worry about what percentage feels engaged. We engage the whole organization and then we bring that into teams. So instead of a top-down approach, we're actually kind of like whole organization, team, then we get up to the individual. Right. So that by the time that individual has a decision whether they want to be engaged, the organization is and their team is, then they become, because it's just part of the peer pressure aspect of it that we saw within our launch and evolution of Culture of Good. I'm sure, George, you could add something to that, or Shannon.
Yeah, I want Shannon to. He ended that question really in that statement with one word: tenacity. And I love Shannon's definition of this. And so, Shannon, do you mind sharing that and really kind of taking it and building it on
Yeah.
from there?
So being tenacious is being persistent in maintaining and adhering to or seeking something valued or desired. So basically, you're just like persistently going after that, what is valued and desired. So if you value and desire a certain culture, and you are just persistently going for it and adhering to the path to get there, no matter what. Mm-hmm. That to me is what tenacity and tenaciousness is. And when you're trying to get some early adoption, usually you're going to know right away who those early adopters are. It can sometimes be a handful of people. Sometimes it's an entire team. Sometimes it's a group within the organization. Those are the people that you want to leverage to help you define what's in it for people at that level of the organization. And that's the question you have to answer in any change. What's in it for them? Yeah. Why would they want to be part of this? Answer that, but engage your early adopters, the ones who are really excited about this, the ones who are proactively stepping forward and leaning into this movement. Engage them to help you define that, and then engage them as your basically champion ambassadors, your culture ambassadors, to go out and get that next group, which are then, so there's the innovators who are like right there next to you doing it with you. There's those early adopters. And then your next group, which is like 35%, are the early majority. You need to get them, and that's how you're going to do it, through your early adopters and those people who really want to get in. Once you get the early majority, the late majority is going to be like, well, if the early majority is doing it, then I guess I should do it. And then you've got pretty much like 85% of the organization. Then the laggards have to come along. So that's how I look at it. It's this progressive snowball effect.
and I wanted to add something, Shannon, because what you said is interesting, because there's others that come later and they're like, okay, I guess if the early majority is going to, I'll jump in. when that happens, because this is going to be any type of cultural effort that any organization takes, when that moment happens and those later, majority come into it, you better damn well hope that what they're going to experience inspires them, gives them that feeling,
Mm,
instead of like, okay, it took me 6 months to really buy into this. Now I'm seeing other people buy into it, and then they get in, and it's
right.
just another culture effort. We really want to have something that gives them a fulfilling reason to get engaged, to connect. That's
Reinforces their
Mhm.
decision. Yes.
Yeah, that's this idea of like loyalty and having a fulfilling experience in our
Right.
process, so that when they come into it, is it fulfilling? Not only what is your culture, but how is your culture fulfilling to people? How does it give them that sense of belonging, as George said? Like, how does it give them, how does it fill their soul? That's fulfilling. Like, how are we creating opportunity for people to connect? Through the pandemic, it was a lot of this conversation of what we've been doing for years. Lead with empathy, like care about people, like build your teams, invest in them, spend time and connect with each person. Like, all of those things are essentially very, very crucial to it. But once those later adopter or later, those that come in, and even the laggards that come in, I think we can inspire them, and
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've seen people that were hesitant toward it, as Jason was talking about, but once they stepped into it, they're like, oh, I'm sold, I'm bought in. You don't have to convince me anymore,
Yeah.
Usually those are the ones who end up being your champions for life. They're so hard to convince, but once they're in,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
hard to get out. So
yeah.
it's
That's it.
so
You're
good.
right. Yeah, yeah.
That's good. So really, we go from reconnecting, we go from inspiring, we go from really how does this culture thing impact our world to really the workplace, and really we talk about the fulfillment experience of going from employee engagement to employee fulfillment. I like something, Ryan. You said something to me a while back that really stuck with me as I was going. I think I was speaking with Enon, and one of the things that you said is, and I said it to them, is you really got to go from chancing to championing your culture.
Yeah.
And that really, it involves creating that loyalty and that buy-in factor with your employees, with your customers, because it goes in from the world view of let's do good to the workplace view of do good. What are some of those factors when it says, hey, listen, this is not just some trendy thing that we're going to do outside, right? With TCC, the big good was your backpack giveaways, and
Mhm.
we're talking millions of backpacks over the course of the last few years that they have. How do we then empower the inner good for our company when it comes to those strategies? And
Mhm.
fulfilling that do good factor to where, man, we're bought in, we're inspired. The laggers have jumped on the back, right? And we're all ready to do good.
Yeah.
We want to enhance now. We want to really have them feel fulfilled, that it's not just some culture, donation of a company, but this is about you as a team member that's a part of this good factor.
Yeah, it's so important. So important. One of the mistakes we made at the Culture Good early on was, and I had done all very much like nonprofit work. So I was trying to teach for-profit companies how to operate with the soul of a nonprofit. Most of my focus was on that external culture, like we talked about, the positive impact on the world. And over time, we realized that people, what the culture goes met with criticism a little bit was, okay, now all of our focus is external. What about internal, right? Culture is made up of both internal and external components. So when we think about your culture, you have to not only think about what is the internal experience of our employees and customers, what's the experience of our community, but our focus initially was first on the community. And then when we started working on the internal, what we found was that the culture of good effort was more than just simply impacting the world, that there were five qualities of the culture of good that did create a more fulfilling experience. So we had over 1,000 employees that were surveyed, hundreds of them we interviewed face to face. We had an entire room full of post-it notes with their answers, and essentially did a sort, what's called a Q sort, and identified consistent answers from thousands of answers from employees that were a part of either before the culture of good and they saw it launch, they were a part of the launch, or they came after, years after the culture of good started. And from those post-it notes and that Q sort that we did, we found that there was agreement patterns of over 70% with 5 specific answers that were given over thousands of employees. They seem really simple, but here's what we got. Culture Good gave us permission to care about people in the world around us. So there was that internal care and the world. So it actually gave them opportunity to care for one another. It really drove observable behaviors internally that said, how are you caring not just for the customer walking in the door, or how are you caring for that neighborhood charity? How are you caring about the person that you work with, right? The second thing was it empowered them to drive the business to greater success so that it can do more good. So it was motivated by good, but it empowered them and developed them to really bring the organization success and drive that success. The third was about that gave them permission to connect with the people around them. So there was that more of a stronger human connection internally, and that really mattered. That we were teaching things like, hey, when you walk down the hallway from one office to the next, don't just look down at your phone. Like, make eye contact, and if you get within 4 foot of someone, say what's up. Like those kind of things, like really simple things. So connection was important. Inspiration, it inspired them and inspired those on their team to do good, and it gave them opportunity to inspire others. And then lastly, they found it to be very authentic, and they're looking for that. So here's how I'd answer all of that quicker. When we hire someone or when we look for a customer, a lot of times, or in the past, as a business owner or as a sales, whatever we're doing in the business, we're thinking about how can they fulfill something for me? How can they fulfill this order? How can they fulfill this, our inventory? How can they help us fulfill our sales? Those kind of things. We have to start asking, what in the hell what fulfills them on a human level? Because guess what? When they show up, they don't turn into a robot, right? Like customers, what's fulfilling to them? Opportunities to give back, leadership that's done so with empathy. They're looking for culture that's supportive. They're looking for friendships and relationships at work. They don't want to work somewhere where they're stuck around people they don't like all day. So I think as leaders, we could start by saying, as a human, what do we desire in the workplace as just human beings? And how do we and not just how, but how are we? Because I think let's do this. Let's stop asking how to do things, since we all have Google, and let's start asking, how are we doing these things? How are you as a leader fostering more fulfilling experiences in your workplace? And we teach that and we train that, but a lot of it comes back down to what do we as humans desire, and what is fulfilling to us, and how are we fostering that internally? But those five key qualities have become pillars, and that's what we look for in cultures of good. Those type of qualities, as well as within the champions that we train and certify within our process.
That's awesome. So when I think about culture, and as we're describing these things here on this workshop, and engaging our employees with work that is positive, that's going to impact the world, we talk about improving employee and customer loyalty by providing a more fulfilling experience. A lot of this is really saying, hey, let's just be human. We've thrown out a lot of words today that ties and suits and jackets don't like to really do, right? They're so used to being proper that they forget that empathy is needed, that people need to be shown grace, that some people just need to be loved. That you just love them, and I'm getting some amens from Shannon, but just those are things that just be natural, just be human, right? We have these HR people in our companies that cannot even be human people and deal with these cultures. And so we really just need to really grasp the understanding, hey, let's just be human and be natural. Let's stop hiding our emotions and show them. And truly champion what this means. I want to take these next. We got about 8 or 9 minutes. I really want to talk about this last piece because I think it's important for those who are watching. And we thank everybody that's watching this right now live. If you're tuning into this later on and it's a recorded version, we appreciate your time. Feel free to share, like this post, share it with your leaders. If you are the leader, contact us. And Ryan and Shannon and I will love to serve you. But this last piece on champion a culture strategy, I want to talk about this because I believe the strategy is really what's going to attract people. That's really going to create that buy-in to the organization. And I'll take it a step further as we wrap up as well, Shannon, is how can we really get this in every company? Everybody that's watching right now that says, man, this is interesting. I want to be a part of this. I don't know if I'm the champion, but I may know a champion, or maybe I am the champion. I want to be a part of this movement that's happening within the workplace, because if anything's taught us anything over the last couple of years, change is necessary and needed. And we need more champions that are not, and it doesn't look like anything. A champion doesn't have a certain look. It doesn't have a certain confidence. It just wants to belong and make an impact to do good. And Shannon, how can you elaborate a little bit more on that and getting this to the organizations?
Yeah, I mean, the first question you have to ask is, are you currently doing good? Are you doing good for your employees? Are you doing good for yourself? Are you doing good for your teams? Are you doing good for your organization? Are you doing good for your communities that you serve, for your peripheral stakeholders? Are you doing good? And again, going back to that first thing I talked about, being completely honest with yourself. You're only lying to yourself if you rely on that question. Be honest. If you're not, then you need it. If you're doing good, you need it because you can always do more good or have good grounded in different ways. And I mean, newsflash, our world, our work is like changing faster than I can keep up with. I have so much compassion for leaders, old school leaders who have gotten to where they're at because they had to use fear and defensive mechanisms to scrape their way through. Use some women I know who have gotten into massive leadership positions by totally turning off their emotions and turning on their force. And I have complete compassion that that's what it took. But in today's world and in the way work is changing, where it's so dynamic and people have complete choice as to where they want to work and how they want to work, whether they want to be full-time or a part-time consultant, or they want to do a passion project and get it funded, be a stay-at-home mom and have that be the greatest work of all. There are so many ways to work. So if you are truly looking to align with how work is, you need to take that personal look and be honest with where your organization is at, how you are attracting those type of workers. What type of culture do people who want flexibility and dynamicness and fun and engagement and purpose, how are you having those first experiences? Posts about wanting to hire, social posts, your interview process, your onboarding process. I mean, I know right away if I have an interview and they're saying things that I do not align with, I don't accept the second interview. Even if they want me, even if they want to pay me a ton of money, I'm like, there is no money that can align with me going against my purpose of bringing love into this world. And I know that about myself because I've done a lot of that deep work. So that's what I would say. It's those first early experiences, being super honest, and then having compassion for yourself that you may have gotten to where you're at by doing the things you had to do to protect, to survive, and to climb that ladder and to get where you need to be. But that might not be what's needed moving forward, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So opportunity comes. I used to define opportunity as something that meets preparation. Right, when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. So you got to be preparing for that opportunity. And just recently, I was given an opportunity, and I was like, do I say yes? Do I say no? And I realized, man, opportunity, Ryan, is now. Right, it's not a yes or no, because the moment that you have in front of you is big, and so I know that coming up here in a few months, we're going to be providing opportunities within the culture of good, and one of those things is really becoming a certified culture champion. And I just want to take the last couple of minutes because we're wrapping up here. Culture Good has so much to offer with the training, with the tools, and really the strategies that we provide and get tactical with that. You want to speak a little bit about this as we're getting ready to launch here in September?
Yeah, to your point, culture in the workplace has not changed, or it's not changing. It's already changed, right? So we're not in the process of that. And so we're really, really pumped and excited. This September 14th through 16th, we're launching for the first time ever our Culture Champion certification. And so we're calling on 100 leaders across the world that are champions already, like to what Shannon said, you already do good. You champion people in the organization. You may be over HR, or you've been tasked with culture or employee engagement or CSR, corporate social responsibility, or any other type of culture change effort. Culture of Good is now providing for 100 leaders this September a certification where you'll be able to learn everything that you need to know to foster a stronger business culture and to build a culture of good that aligns with your employees, customers, and your community's passions. And so this is for individuals that want to be certified. This is for organizations that want to send a culture champion to be certified. This is for trade associations or member organizations, and you're looking for ways to engage your membership across states or across the world. Any type of engagement where you want to put your heart and soul into that work, we're calling on 100 champions. And so that QR code that you see on your screen will give you an opportunity to get onto our mailing list. If you subscribe to our mailing list, you'll be the first to know when the tickets, or not tickets, but when the opportunity goes on sale to purchase your seat there. In September, it's going to be in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's going to be fun. Shannon's going to teach. She's got a class in one of the mornings for mixed martial arts training. I mean, it's going to be a blast. We're going to have fun. We're going to hang out. We're going to do a lot of fun, do some good together. But every person that comes to that is going to go back to their organization empowered and equipped with the tools and the soft and hard skills necessary to launch a culture of good and lead it forward, not by themselves either. We're going to help them build a team and to help build the organization and provide awesome weekly support throughout the entire year after the certification. We'll be doing more of these live events with our champions. And at Culture of Good, we're here to champion you in your organization. So that's our whole messaging moving forward in terms of how we encourage our strategy to be adopted into organizations. So yeah, this September 14th through the 16th, 100 certified culture champions going out. This will be the launch of the movement of 100 people that are on the ground level, just ready to go out into their communities, into their world, and into their workplace and champion the people that work with them and for them. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about it. I wish it was like tomorrow, but we need people signed up. So
I know Shannon's getting out here. Shannon, you got one last word as you're getting off?
I love you all. And I can't wait to see you in September. Bye.
Yes. Awesome. So Shannon's out here. Ryan, I appreciate you, man. This has been awesome as we talk about this. And just to recap everything that we discussed today. And as always, you can find out more information on culturegood.com. You can get more about what we talk about here. You can find us if you're looking for keynote speaker. This man, Ryan McCarty, is a heck of a keynote speaker. And
this guy here is pretty good too.
So if you would like Culture Good to come to your workplace, whether it's myself or Ryan McCarty, as well as Shannon, if you want to get some mixed martial arts workshops in, and as far as getting your culture kicked in shape, you can do that. If you want to bring all three of us, there's a package for that as well, and we would love to be there. So today, as we talk about engaging your employees with work that has a positive impact in the world, we discussed a little bit about improving employee and customer loyalty by providing a more fulfilling experience. And we wrapped up today with championing a culture strategy that attracts people to your organization. And just one last reminder, coming September the 14th through the 16th, in Indianapolis, Indiana, championyourculture.com. You can get more information, or you can scan the QR code there. But we are licensing 100 certified culture champions, whether it's individually or if you are as a company want to send a few of your team members to get trained, to get tools, get tactical to the champion, your people and your culture. And this comes with a fun-filled couple of days of strategy. Yeah. And we love to have fun. And if you didn't know, we love to laugh and have a good time as well. So we're gonna have a good time, but we're really going to get in there and create some champions of good.
Hey, as Shannon said, we love you all. George, I love you a lot, man. I appreciate you a lot. I can't wait to have you MC that event. That's going to be a blast, on stage. Yeah. It's going to be a good time. So
it'll be great.
The movement begins. We go from a culture good to a movement of good, September 14th to 16th. We'll see you guys there.
Take care, everybody.